when we start out with the wands, I love the Ace of Wands as a match. I mean, it's amazing. Rod, cudgel, it gives kind of synonyms for the different staffs that there could be. It talks about the fire, representing a fire here. In this deck, he does have staves as fire. And so that would be the ace. I'm going to leave the aces out so I can look at them later. We do have a number 2 here, and he does clearly seem to have a staff, so I think that it wouldn't be too hard to remember who he is or to work out what card it is. So for the 2 of staffs, we have Richard II. I'm not going to dilly-dally unless something catches my eye. Again, we do have the 3 here, and we do have a wood, you know, coming down the middle for the 3 of staff as Orlando, and of course we have images of Rosalind and of Adam. Here we have, do we have the number 4 of staves? Yes, we have the 1 and the V here, but again, you really do have to look, and I would say if there was any downside to this deck in terms of using it as just a regular tarot deck is it might take some work to figure out when you pulled cards what you're looking at. Now, I personally would probably only do a 3-card reading with this deck anyways, because there's so much information you really want to dive into it, and so it won't be so, you know, there's not so many that I have to try to sort out. So there are some of them, you know, that it could have been helpful. And just in terms of a full-on tarot deck, it would have been helpful maybe to have a very clear numbering of maybe the major arcana, and then just something very clearly written in cool font of what the card is, so that you don't have to hunt as much. But I don't think this is a deck in which you I think that you need to be willing to work a little bit for this deck, and I think that's okay. There are decks that we use because they are easy to pop and clearly see what's going on, and bam, 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 it's giving us a message. And there are other decks in which the context and the text and all of the information, and it's a meaty deck to dig into, and those are different decks, and it's okay to have to work a little bit. But that is one thing I would say that would make me a little concerned over a large reading of these cards, is knowing exactly what you were looking at without really having worked a lot with the cards. So this is Orsino, the Duke of Illyria. The 5 of staffs, again, you can see the 5 here, and you can kind of tell it's very 5 of staffy with, you know, with the fighting that's going on here. And we have Edgar, aka Poor Tom. For the 6, again, we do have the numbers there. We do have some staffs going on here. We have Iachimo, who is a soldier of fortune, a diminutive of Iago. And Iachimo is a diminutive Iago. Again, even with the minor arcana, we do have the intertext, so that if you want to know another card that may be related or within that same play context, you can be able to find that. And I actually think that in terms of usage is going to be an amazing layer when you see certain characters perhaps show up together. Next, for the 7 of staffs, we have Hotspur or Henry Percy. I'm not going to, again, we do have the 7. For 8, we have Mercutio, also associated with Christopher Marlowe. For number 9, now this I will say looks to be almost black and white, but it is actually sepia. So for the 9 of staffs, we have Mark Antony. Let Rome and Tiber melt, and the wide arc of the ranged empire fall. Here is my space. And we can see the 9 here. And then here we have an amazing looking, I love this, 10 of staves with Richard III. How awesome is that image? Which is, of course, also associated with Robert Cecil, Lord Cranborne, and 1st Earl of Salisbury. We then have the Page of Staffs as custard. And this does, so in the actual court, we can see, I think I'm messing these cards all up over here. The Page of Staffs, we can see it's titled The Page of Staffs. The Knight of Staffs as Julia. Absolutely stunning image. Really beautiful write-up for this as well. I would highly recommend looking that up. This next one is stunning. Queen of Staffs as Viola. And then lastly, the King of Staffs as Leontes, the King of Sicilia. And again, he goes into so much information on why these were chosen. I love, 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 love the swords with the quills. All of these quills here in the Ace of Swords. Of course, love it. Again, for the Two of Swords, we have Volumnia here associated. Again, we do have the two here. We do have a dagger in the middle. It's the Crucible, a moment of truth. I love it. This is also a really interesting write-up here about Volumnia as well. And it's quite interesting connotation with the Two of Swords. Love it, love it, love it. The Three of Swords as Brutus. Caesar is seen here at 3 ages, boy, youth, and grown man. He is a colorless statue or an icon. Blood drips from the stone. Again, it talks about everything that's going on with this. It's just really amazing. This Four of Swords, I think, is stunning. This is Hamlet Sr. Here, the ghost of Hamlet's father as the Four of Swords, the resting knight. Oops, here, go this here. I'm trying to get through this. Really amazing. Again, just little images and historical context. Just amazing. Here we have the Five of Swords as Edmund. And let's see. This would be a harder one. I don't off the bat see the 5. It's probably here somewhere. I don't see a 5. You do see some daggers being drawn here. But this would be one of those that you would have to get to know and try to figure out what it was. So that would, again, be my only criticism. And just in terms of usability, I think that would help. Although many of them I think you can see. I love this Six of Swords. I think it's absolutely stunning. It's one of my favorites. You definitely have the swords here. You actually have 6 swords here. You may actually have 5 daggers here, so I just can't see them. I absolutely love this card, even just as a Six of Swords, right? Without any historical context behind it. We do have the number 7 here with Laertes and Claudius. Also relates to Thomas Cecil and Robert Dudley. The Eight of Swords here as Lavinia is really beautiful. I love this idea of sort of the Colosseum as that row of swords that we normally see in the Eight of Swords. She is a sacrifice. It's just that I think is really gorgeous. Card, just as a card in general. One of my ultimate favorite cards is the Nine of Swords as Ophelia. Ophelia is one of my all-time favorite characters in I just think she's such a fascinating, and I remember as a child we had a painting of Ophelia in the museum nearby that my mom took us to all the time, and I was absolutely in love with this image of Ophelia. And so of course when I finally was old enough and started reading Shakespeare and found out who Ophelia was, it was just something that she's always been really important. And I think that the write-up on Ophelia and the Nine of Swords is really amazing, and I definitely, or thought-provoking. Again, you don't have to agree with everything, every choice for each of these things, but he certainly goes out of his way to explain why he's chosen them, and it's all food for thought, as all text should be. It's not the Bible on Shakespeare, but it certainly makes you think, and there's a lot to chew on, and simply as a image, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. Here we have the Ten of Swords, which is Coriolanus, standing before a ruined Colosseum, which is really interesting, right? Because we actually have, you know, the Colosseum here in the Eight of Swords. So it's quite interesting. And this is actually tied to the Two of Swords. We then have the Page of Swords for Thersites from Troy. This is another one, Troilus and Cressida. I don't think I've ever seen it, but apparently, or read it, I'm sorry. Thersites is the fool character, and I guess he sounds like a madman for calling a spade, as many fools will do. And so that's who we have for the Page. The Knight of Swords we have as Benedict, very handsome. We have the beautiful Queen of Swords as Beatrice, which I love. I absolutely love. I think she's perfect for the Queen of Swords. Of course, I love the Queen of Swords card, but she's a woman who knows both her mind and her heart, and though she harbors feelings for Benedict, knows well enough to cut those feelings down to size. Many of the swipes she takes at man's nature, male hegemony, and the inequality of wedlock are as incisive as they are decisive. Yeah, I think she makes a great Queen of Swords. We have Angelo as the King of Swords. There, and that wraps up the beautiful, again, we've got quills here, which I love in swords. The next is the cups. We have bowls, pots, rouse, stoops, porringer, chalices, here's synonyms you can use, and metonyms of eggs and ears and hearts and shells. The Ace of Cups is a reliquary, a box within a box. We see an etching of a heart, a painter's palette, the soft underside of a turtle. The various eggs suggest fragility and the hope of new life. Shells represent what brittle protection can be mustered against the enormity of the seas. And on and on. It's just beautiful. The aces are amazing, I think, all of them. All's well that ends well. Two of Cups, we have Helena and Bertram. I know I've got to keep moving. This is a beautiful card, and look at all the eggs, just images, and The Three of Cups is Troilus and Cressida. Perched on an egg, Troilus and Cressida revel in the dance of lovemaking. All kinds of things going on. Peacocks and eggs showing up, sitting on the eggs. There's just information upon information, and symbol upon symbol to draw from, especially if you are the kind of reader that does pick up on all of the different kinds of symbologies and things. I think this would be amazing for that. Here we have the Four of Cups as in Antonio the Merchant of Venice. Next we have the Five of Cups as the Countess Illyria, dressed in the black of mourning in memory of her recently deceased father and brother. The Six of Cups, we have Perdita, two young shepherds, a boy and a girl. I mean, it just feels very Six of Cups. And we have the beautiful sort of flower art from the time there, which is really gorgeous. The card itself is a bouquet of the flowers that Perdita mentions by name. These include lavender, marjoram, primrose, violet, savory, iris, daffodil, mint, oxlip, marigold, and gilvor. The last flower is a streaked carnation, which some call nature's bastards. Perdita equates it with makeup and eschews it for being unnatural. Here we have the Seven of Cups, as has here as brown. You can even see the coloration in the cups. It's not strong, but certainly in this one, there's a different feel to the suits, I will say. The 8 of Cups is Alcibiades, and I'm sure I just slaughtered that. If I ever knew how to pronounce that, it is gone. But again, this is from, I believe, from the play Timon, which is not a play that I'm really familiar with. Yeah, Timon of, I think this is from Timon of Athens. Here we have the 9 of Cups, Toby Belch. The 9 of Cups is a card of low humor and high spirits. It is the middle of the night, and 3 revelers are deep in their cups. That's pretty funny. Look at that. I mean, look at that 10 of Cups. It looks like a scene of a musical. It looks like a scene at the end of the play when everybody comes out to take a bow. And it does show all these different people who are on here. In order of appearance: Angelo, Adriana, Balthazar, Luciana, and so on and so forth. It lists everybody here, which is really amazing. But it just looks like the 10 of Cups. It's an amazing looking card. We have the Page of Cups as Lord Jacques. We have Rosalind as the Knight, or Rosalind as the Knight of Cups, which I love. We have the Queen of Cups as Cleopatra, very passionate and smart and wise. The King of Cups as Hal, or also related to King Henry, or aka Prince Hal. So we have that. The King and Queen of Cups are among the most complex of the cards, certainly of the court cards. And it goes into a lot of astrology as well. It's just fascinating. The Ace of Crowns, which would be coins, or the physical plane, or earth, I think is an amazing. It's one of my favorite cards as well. The aces are all stunning. We'll look at those once again when I'm done. The 2 of Crowns as Festi, aka Sir Topaz. We have, look at this. What is this going on at the bottom? The 3 of Coins. See, even something like this where we have 3 in the coins, I think that it would be just have been very helpful. Very helpful. This is in order of appearance a bunch of different people. This is a more complex card than it initially appears. It presents to the reader the play within a play of the 9 worthies in Love's Labour's Lost, a play itself in part about the allure of illusion versus a mature intercourse with reality. Very interesting. And it goes on, talks a lot about this card. Again, so much. And it does talk about Shakespeare probably got the 1.5 long word. I cannot even say this word. Can you look at this? Look at how amazing this is. And how would you even say it? I'm going to have to look it up. I bet somewhere is somebody who on YouTube who says this actual word. So that's pretty awesome. We have the 5 of Crowns as Caliban, which is, of course, from The Tempest. So we have that going on here. We have the 6 of Crowns as Theseus. In the 6 of Cups, we have Theseus, and we have all 6 mechanicals enacting their labor of love. Pyramus and Thisbe, the play within a play, is a mawkish romantic tragedy in the vein of Romeo and Juliet, while the players are an amateur theater group that we see this in Midsummer Night's Dream. Whoops. Ceres seems to think that I have something to say to her with this particular deck. Here we have the 7 of Crowns as the Ghost of Banquo. And this is related to Macbeth. We have, oops, the 8 of Crowns is Vincentio. Consists of 2 distinct. The 8 of Crowns, like the number 8, consists of 2 distinct distinct spheres, one on top of the other. Above is a colorful world of people and pageantry. Beneath, the dark, dank labyrinth of the catacombs of a soul could be lost forever within. It's just so much information. I can't even begin to tell you. You just have to check it out. This is beautiful. The 9 of coins as Portia, I think, is amazing. And look at, she's got Balthazar in her right hand. Portia holds her palatial home of Belmont. In her left, herself as special doctor of the law, Balthazar, and doctoring he does. The beautiful Portia is a kind of living scale of justice, but there seems to be some discrepancy in the balance. So it's just a beautiful card, even in its own right. The 10 of Crowns is the sonnets, so I love that. It's just it's a complete body of work rather than a particular character. It foreshadows some cards of the major arcana. So yeah, again, lots of information here. I love how that card is in here. We have the Page of Crowns as Touchstone. We have the Knight of Crowns as Jessica. I do like how some of the knights are females. That makes me happy. We have the Queen of Crowns as Katharina here. The Queen of Crowns is a very physical presence. She has both fought for her place and against it, and the fight has paid off. She comes from money, but she is also resourceful. Like the seeds of flora which struggle to take root, but once they do, they thrive and finally flourish. She loves luxury and physicality itself, and has cultivated a deep-rooted understanding of love and fealty, which affords her a far richer appreciation of life's real value. I mean, it's just amazing. He just done an amazing job. And for the King of Crowns, we have Petruchio. And that wraps up the amazing set of cards, and that doesn't even begin to touch on how there is, let me get past the major arcana, which we've already looked at, to the appendix. So this is, okay, yeah, he calls it an apocrypha. So then there is an apocrypha. So as the first folio, which is what we've just pretty much experienced, is Shakespeare Bible, any and all works attributed to him but not found there are by definition apocryphal. Just like the apocrypha, we have the books of the Bible that are considered to be the apocrypha. They're not part of the Bible itself. But yeah, so we have all of these extra cards that could relate to different plays that may be questionable as to whether they are actually written by Shakespeare or not, and it's kind of left as maybe a bit of an oracle. It could be used as a bit of an oracle. This is a different justice card. This is a different strength card. So just extra cards that he probably wanted to write about or was interested in. This is really gorgeous. That are added in to the deck as an apocrypha, which is really cool because when you think of this as the book, as a book, and this being sort of the Bible of Shakespeare and then having the apocryphal texts, I think is a very clever way to have a conversation about these. And there's, I think, different ways that you could use those. So let me zoom back out. And I know this was like an overload of just kind of information, but again, I think that the key is for you to be able to see the cards. Again, the backing is stunning. I really love the aces here. I love the matches. I love the quills. I love the cabinet of curiosities. I absolutely love the ace of crowns. The aces are, I love aces in decks, and these are probably some of my favorite aces because I think they are simply awesome. So let me give this a little bit of a shuffle here. They are quite large. So for example, this would be a standard tarot. You can see that they are quite a bit taller and wider, and I think that that is necessary. Could this be trimmed? No. There are texts that come all the way to the edge. You would be losing a lot of information in doing so. I have quite long hands, and I don't think I could riffle shuffle this. Nope, nope, not going to happen. So this is going to have to be one for the overhand shuffle. You might be able to, although it feels like it may be too narrow to side shuffle. You can get a little bit of a side shuffle in there, and especially as they broke in more, perhaps you can. I've literally been too afraid to shuffle this deck because I didn't want to have to try to get everything back into order. And it's not just this deck. There are certain decks like the Madrone. I don't like to get that mixed up because I want to do a video on it, and that's kind of a little bit more difficult to get sorted out. And so this is definitely one of them that I haven't really been able to play with because I've been being held up by needing to make a walkthrough of it and being a little bit intimidated about the massive amount of information that's here. So I think in the end, you know, kind of taking a look at these cards as we've done is important. But again, I do highly recommend that you take a look at the website to get a full scope of how much work has gone into this book. I think that, you know, there is just so much information. But I also think many of the cards have a feeling of what, you know, of what they are without a vet. You don't have to come to this with a vast knowledge of Shakespeare. Now, I think that you can get these cards separately from the book. And I do think the book is not cheap. This was sent to me by the author to take a look at. I truthfully can't imagine using this book or this deck without the book. Now again, there's a lot of information on the website, but I'm not sure if that is intended to always stay up or not. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. But I think that that is understandable. I think, have to understand the amount of work that goes into both producing these images in such a thoughtful and very intentional way, as well as this amount of work and scholarship that is going on here. Again, whether you agree with everything in here or not, it is a massive amount of information to digest, to make you think, to make you chew on, to make you debate, and you know, all of that takes work and takes time. There is an index in the back that shows all of the plays that were referenced in this deck. It does have some web resources here that you can go to. Lots of further reading if you want to read more. It says a full list of the books referenced for the Shakespeare Tarot would be too extensive for the purpose of this bibliography. These are the books that are germane to the Shakespeare Tarot, the authorship issue itself, and those otherwise of unique and or exceptional insight. So a further reading list. Renaissance era authors, individual works of anonymity, classical authors that go into it, web resources, and then again an index of the plays that are shown here, as well as ends with the poem The Phoenix and the Turtle. Which is really neat. Let me see if there was anything ahead of it. I think that went, yeah, that was then ahead of it, which was I had shown you before, was the Apocrypha, as well as then the timeline, which is the chronology, which is primarily focused on Edward de Vere being the actual person behind Shakespeare. Which is something that you can read and make a opinion, come to an opinion of it yourself, if that is something that is more important to you than it is of me. So a tremendous amount of work here, no question. Again, I don't think that I would, oh, here we have the Fool. I don't think that I would ever pull more than 3 cards from this deck, and I do plan to give it a good try, or give it a good use. And so I will come back back to this and kind of update you on how I get on with this, because I think that this could be beautiful, you know, a play in 3 acts, right? So you could have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and that would be a really neat way. I think there's some neat ways to do this. So here we can very clearly see that we have the Fool. This one is really easy to see that we have the 3 of Coins, and this one's actually really just easy to see that we have the 6 of Swords. So, you know, that's not too bad there. I don't want to mix in the Apocrypha. And I didn't want to mix in the aces because I want to take a picture of them because they're stunning. Let's just split again. I just want to kind of put some of the cards out. Here we have the 8 of Swords. I knew right away that that was the 8 of Swords. We have here the 2 of Cups, which it has the 2 and it has a cup right here. So that's not too difficult to see. And then from the bottom, we have one that I think I said might be difficult to know what we were looking at. I believe this is one of the Wands. And we do have the 4. So I believe this is the 4 of Wands. Let me just kind of test myself and see if that is the case. But I'm pretty sure that's the 4. Yep, that's the 4 of Wands. So not too difficult whatsoever there. And it's beautiful, and that's how I intend to work with this, is, you know, with 3 cards. Just pull a couple more here. Here we have the Emperor, which is clearly noted. Here we have the King of Swords, which is clearly noted. And from the bottom, we have the 6 of Swords wanting to show up again. I'm just trying to pull a few just to get a feeling for. Here we have the Death card. It's unnamed, and it's the only black and white. We have the Hanged Man, which is again quite clear. And the Justice card, which is quite clear. Which, yeah, I don't think the major arcana are going to be any kind of an issue. Here we have the 9, and I remember that this is the 9 of Staves. It does have a, you know, stabby feel to it. Here we have the 4 of something, and then that's going to be questionable. I believe that this, no, it's not 4 of Swords. I'll look it up in a second. Here we have the King of Cups, which is quite well laid out. So I do, some of, you know, the minors I do think are, it's not this, that's the 6s. It's not the 4 because we had, of Staves, I mean. So maybe it's the 4 of Swords, 2 of Cups, 3 of Cups. Not the 4 of Cups, so it must be the 4 of Swords, which is what I had thought that it might be. 6, 3 of Crowns. Nope, it's the 4 of Crowns. And I guess here we actually do have a coin. So some of this is just going to be getting to know the deck, right? So, and I've already said it, and I know people say once I say what something might be problematic, but I do think this is one of the things that people would ask about this deck. I still don't think that it is something that could keep you, if you like the deck, to keep you from using it, because I do think there is a way to figure out what you're looking at. This one I know is a sword, but this is the one that, unless somebody can point it out, I don't see a number, whereas most of the minor cards do have the number in it. But this is definitely a sword, so I could look that up that way. Here we have the Justice card. Oops, I think we already did that. Let's just pull some random ones here. Here we have the 7s, and I know this is the 7 of Cups. We've got the hearts here. So I don't find this going to be particularly terrible, and especially if you're not doing, and this is such a large deck, I can't imagine you would be doing 10 cards in a spread with it, at least until you got to know it better, right? So I wouldn't particularly I would take it as perhaps an inconvenience, but not anything that I would would stop me from using the deck. So I'm going to leave it there. I will most assuredly be edging the deck in a sort of page color, right? I know that the fronts are white, so I should just leave that alone, but these backs are so gorgeous that I will probably edge this in sort of a linen-y color just to kind of antique it a little bit. And I will come back, as I generally do, I will come back and give you an update on it. I am going to be using it so that I can get a good feeling for how this actually works as a readable deck. So keep an eye out for that, and I will make sure to update you in a month or two. I try to come back to the decks that I've done over the last month or two and give you an update. So now that I can shuffle these up, I'm going to get to using them, and we shall see. So I hope that you've enjoyed this look at this gorgeous, gorgeous deck. There is no denying the beauty and the work that went into this deck. That is for certain. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.